Best friends turned lovers in one night. The storm's arrival. The wind howled through Saltmere Bay like a living creature, sending spray from the harbor across the cobblestone streets. Nina Hartley clutched her ceramic vase, wrapped carefully in tissue, as she climbed the winding path to the old lighthouse cottage perched on the cliff's edge. Through the thickening fog, warm golden light spilled from the windows, a beacon calling her home. Theo Ashford opened the door before she could knock, his dark hair tousled from the wind, wearing that soft grey sweater she'd given him 3 Christmases ago. "You're late," he said with that half-smile that had been making her heart skip since they were teenagers. "Traffic was terrible," Nina lied, stepping inside to the warmth of crackling fire and something savory bubbling on the stove. The truth was she'd sat in her car for 10 minutes, rehearsing how to act normal when being alone with Theo lately made her chest tight with feelings she couldn't name. "Happy birthday, troublemaker." He pulled her into a hug that lasted a moment too long, his familiar scent of cedarwood and sea salt wrapping around her like a promise. The lighthouse cottage was small but perfectly Theo, nautical charts framed on walls, sketches of marine structures scattered across his drafting table, and everywhere, tucked into corners like secrets, little pieces of her. A mug she'd made him. Polaroids from beach bonfires. Her paintings dotting the spaces between his blueprints. "I made your favorite," Theo said, ladling seafood stew into bowls as thunder rumbled in the distance. "And I have that wine you've been wanting to try." As they settled at his small wooden table, rain began pelting the windows. Nina's phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Severe storm warning, power outages expected, avoid travel. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging them into firelight. In the dancing shadows, Theo's eyes found hers across the table, darker than usual, holding something she'd never let herself examine too closely. "Looks like you're stuck with me tonight," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Unraveling truths. The wine bottle emptied as hours dissolved into stories they'd told 100 times before, but tonight each memory felt heavier, laden with meanings they'd always skirted around. Nina sat cross-legged on the worn leather couch, firelight painting copper highlights in her honey-blonde hair, while Theo stretched beside her, close enough that their knees touched. "Remember when you punched Derek Morrison for spreading rumors about me?" Nina laughed, refilling their glasses with the second bottle. "He deserved worse," Theo muttered, his jaw tightening even now. "Nobody talks about you like that." The protectiveness in his voice sent warmth through her chest that had nothing to do with the wine. Nina traced the rim of her glass, suddenly bold. "Why'd you break up with Rachel last year? You never really told me." Theo was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. "She said I was in love with someone else." His grey eyes met hers, unflinching. She was right. Nina's breath caught. Before she could spiral into wondering who, Theo stood abruptly, moving to his drafting table. He returned with a portfolio, worn at the edges, and placed it in her lap. Inside were dozens of sketches, bridge designs, pier renovations, waterfront developments. But in every margin, every corner, were drawings of her. Nina laughing. Nina concentrating on her pottery wheel. Nina sleeping during their movie marathons, peaceful and unguarded. "Theo." Her voice broke. "Every structure I've designed for 15 years, he said, kneeling beside the couch now, his face level with hers. "I've imagined you walking through it. Every space I create, I'm asking, would Nina love this? Would she feel safe here? You're in everything I build." Nina's hands trembled as she touched the sketches. "I thought I was going crazy. Every man I've dated," she laughed shakily, tears threatening, "I'd be sitting across from them at dinner, and I'd think he doesn't notice when I'm anxious like Theo does, or his laugh doesn't make me feel warm, or—" "Nina." Theo's hand covered hers on the portfolio, his thumb brushing her wrist where her pulse hammered. "What are you saying?" The storm rattled the lighthouse, but all she could hear was her heart. "I'm saying I've been comparing everyone to my best friend for 10 years, and none of them ever measured up." The breaking point. The confession hung between them like lightning waiting to strike. Theo's hand remained on hers, his thumb now tracing slow circles on her wrist that sent electricity up her arm. Nina watched his face, the face she knew better than her own, transform with something raw and desperate. "Do you know," Theo said, his voice rough, barely above a whisper, "how many times I've almost told you? How many moments I've swallowed the words because losing you as a friend would destroy me?" He shifted closer, his other hand coming up to cup her jaw, tilting her face toward his. "I have been in love with you since we were 17, Nina. Since you fell asleep on my shoulder during that terrible horror movie and I realized I wanted every movie, every moment, every tomorrow with you." Nina's breath hitched. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the firelight reflecting in his eyes, making them molten. "Why didn't you?" "Because you're everything." His forehead pressed against hers, his breath warm on her lips. "My best friend, my favorite person, the first thing I think about when I wake up. What if I ruined it? What if you didn't feel the same and I lost you completely?" "You idiot," Nina breathed, her fingers curling into his sweater, pulling him closer. "You beautiful idiot. I've been terrified of the same thing." The distance between them evaporated. Their first kiss was tentative, questioning, a gentle press of lips that tasted like wine and years of longing. Then Nina made a small sound in her throat, and something inside Theo snapped. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head as the kiss deepened, years of restraint crumbling in an instant. Nina gasped against his mouth, her hands exploring the planes of his chest, the strong lines of his shoulders she'd admired secretly for so long. Theo groaned, pulling her closer, until she was in his lap, their bodies pressed together with nothing tentative anymore, only hunger and heat and finally giving in. "Tell me to stop," Theo rasped against her neck, his lips tracing her pulse point. "If this is too fast." "Don't you dare stop," Nina commanded, tugging at his sweater, needing to feel his skin against hers. "We've waited long enough." The portfolio scattered to the floor, forgotten, as they explored this new territory. Familiar bodies suddenly electric with possibility, friendship transforming into something fierce and consuming. The night that changed everything. Theo lifted Nina effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her toward the bedroom loft, their mouths never breaking contact. The stairs creaked under their weight, the lighthouse groaning with the storm, but neither noticed anything beyond the heat building between them. He laid her gently on his bed, the same bed where she'd crashed countless times after late-night conversations, but everything was different now. The firelight from below cast dancing shadows across the wooden beams. Theo hovered above her, his eyes searching hers one last time for permission, for certainty. "I love you," Nina whispered, pulling him down to her. "I think I always have." Those words unlocked something primal in him. His kisses grew more urgent, trailing down her throat, her collarbone, learning the geography of her body with reverent attention. Nina arched beneath him, her fingers tangling in his dark hair, gasping his name like a prayer as barriers that had protected their friendship for 15 years dissolved completely. They moved together with surprising synchronicity, best friends who knew each other's rhythms, now discovering new ones. Every touch was both exploration and homecoming, tender and passionate by turns. When Theo's hands mapped the curves of her waist, her hips, Nina trembled not with nervousness but with the rightness of it all. "You're so beautiful," Theo murmured against her skin, his voice thick with emotion. "I've dreamed about this, about you." Nina silenced him with a kiss that conveyed everything words couldn't, desire and trust and love woven together inseparably. They shed clothing and inhibitions, skin against skin, hearts racing in tandem. Outside, the storm reached its crescendo, thunder shaking the lighthouse walls, but inside they created their own tempest. Hours blurred together, passionate intensity giving way to gentle exploration, whispered confessions between kisses, laughter at the strangeness and perfection of finally being together this way. They learned each other completely, best friends becoming lovers with a depth that felt inevitable, like the tide returning to shore. As the storm began to quiet, they lay tangled together, Nina's head on Theo's chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, and she'd never felt more safe, more cherished, more home. Dawn painted the sky soft pink through the bedroom window, and neither of them had slept, too wrapped up in each other, in this new reality they'd created. New beginnings. Morning light filtered through the salt-stained windows, turning the lighthouse bedroom golden. Nina stirred first, momentarily disoriented, then remembering everything. She turned in Theo's arms to find him already awake, watching her with an expression so full of love it made her chest ache. "Hi," she whispered, suddenly shy despite the intimacy they'd shared. "Hi yourself." He brushed a strand of honey-blonde hair from her face, his touch reverent. "Any regrets?" "Only that we wasted 10 years being scared." Nina kissed him softly, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. Although maybe we needed those years to be ready for this. They dressed slowly, stealing kisses between pulling on clothes still scattered across the floor. The storm had passed, leaving Saltmere Bay washed clean and glittering under morning sun. Hand in hand, they descended the lighthouse stairs and stepped outside onto the cliff path. The harbor stretched before them, fishing boats already heading out, seabirds wheeling overhead calling their morning songs. Nina leaned into Theo's side, his arms solid around her waist, and everything felt different. Sharper, more vibrant, like she'd been seeing the world through fog and it had finally cleared. "What happens now?" she asked, though she wasn't really worried. They'd navigated 15 years of friendship through every storm. This was just a new chapter. Theo stopped walking, turning her to face him, the lighthouse standing sentinel behind them. "Now we do what we've always done. We figure it out together. Except now I get to kiss you whenever I want." He demonstrated, making her laugh against his lips. "And tell you I love you every single day." "Every single day," Nina echoed, her heart so full she thought it might burst. They continued down the path toward town, fingers interlaced, two best friends who'd finally stopped running from the truth. The friendship they'd built brick by brick over 15 years hadn't crumbled. It had become the foundation for something deeper, richer, unshakable. Their story hadn't ended. It had only just begun. Lessons learned. Love often lives closest to home. Sometimes the person we're meant to love has been beside us all along, hidden in plain sight behind the comfortable mask of friendship, waiting for courage to unveil the truth. Fear of loss can blind us to gain. Protecting what we have can prevent us from discovering what we could have. True connection requires the bravery to risk comfort for the possibility of something extraordinary. The best romance grows from friendship. Passion built on genuine knowing, shared history, and deep trust creates love that weathers every storm, because it's rooted in seeing and accepting someone completely. Timing is everything, but so is courage. We can't force love's moment, but when it arrives, we must be brave enough to seize it, to speak truth even when our voices shake, to choose vulnerability over safety and find that surrender leads to freedom.